Welcome to With One Accord, the Houston Chamber Choir podcast. I'm April Harris, General Manager.
And I'm Matthew Hazard, Choral Conducting Intern. We're thrilled to host today's Education Spotlight.
This episode is provided in part thanks to the generosity of Silvercrest Asset Management Group, celebrating its 20th year in business, providing bespoke investment solutions. Today, the Houston Chamber Choir shines a spotlight on educator Michael Kessler and Pearland High School and Pearland ISD, where Michael has been the choir director since 2016. In the 2021-2022 school year, the Pearland High School Choir achieved a remarkable accomplishment. 22 of their members made it past the third round of Texas All-State auditions. Tens of thousands of Texas's top choral students begin the four-round audition process for All-State, and only the top percent, approximately 3%, are selected for the All-State Choir. Just how do they do it? What is Pearland High School's formula for success? Michael explains in the interview that his approach is quite simple and starts with teaching his students how to practice, individually and as a group. An accomplished singer himself, Michael provides his students with the tools and knowledge to develop their own individual sound, ensuring they're prepared for whatever path they choose. It was a great pleasure to begin season 2 of the podcast with this very special guest, and with my new co-host, Moore School of Music doctoral student Matthew Hazard. After the interview concludes, stay tuned for a beautiful and powerful choral music selection performed by the Pearland High School Mixed Varsity Choir. Enjoy. We're joined today by a very special guest from Pearland ISD, choral director of Pearland High School, Michael Kessler. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I love to start out our interviews, just basically getting to know our interviewees. So if you can tell us a little bit about you, your background, what brought you to choral music in this atmosphere? Sure.
My background in choirs is actually, it goes kind of far back, and it goes back to my elementary school teacher. Her name's Miss Stewart. She pulled me aside for maybe a 2-minute conversation. She noticed that I sing in class a lot, and she handed me a flyer. It says, "I think you should audition for the Spring Branch Boys Choir." And that was it. I took it home to my parents, and they arranged an audition, and I went and I auditioned and I got in, and I've been singing since then. I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And then I was in school. I was in choir in elementary school, junior high, all the way through high school.
When do you?
And then it came. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It came time to decide what I wanted to do, and up until then, choir was something that I was passionate about, but I didn't think it was going to be my career. I thought I was going to go into IT. My dad does IT, and I was taking a lot of computer classes in school, and I was actually working for the school district in IT. I was doing technical support and lots of computer stuff. And then I did the job for a year while I was in high school. I was 17, and I decided I didn't want to do that job anymore. And so I auditioned for U of H, and I got in. So I attended the Moore School of Music.
Fantastic.
Yay! And you sang for Dr. Weber, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah, you were the bass section leader. I saw that.
Yeah, I was in concert chorale for a little while, and then I became the bass section leader, and then I became the student director after that.
Rightfully so. Clearly. Yeah.
And that's where your director career kind of kicked in, and you figured this is it.
I knew going into music school that I wanted to go into education. I did not want to be a performer. That's a very transient lifestyle. It's very inconsistent. It didn't feel good for me. I didn't want to live that way, even though I love singing. I remain active as a singer to this day. But I knew I didn't want that to be how I made my money all the time. I didn't want that to be my life all the time. And so I knew I wanted to go into education.
So you're Houston's like premier soloist who can also fix your computer. That is like pretty incredible. I did not know that about you.
Yeah, I still remain fairly technical, but it's not the same. Not the same level of obsession I was when I was in high school. I have other interests now.
That's absolutely fantastic, Michael. Thank you so much for sharing. And let's get into Pearland High School. Lots of wonderful achievements coming out of your choir. Let's talk about it.
Sure. Well, recently we've been most involved in the Texas All-State Choir process. We took, I think, 66 students to the first round, and we got 43 through to the second round. We just had our second round on Monday night, and we got 22 into the third round, which is more than we've had in a long time. That's pretty strong.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's
thank you.
I hear that's like a remarkable achievement. I mean, as a person who's not necessarily from Texas, like, can you explain a little bit like the significance of All-State, how competitive it is?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And this is just based off of numbers that I know off the top of my head. Something like 15,000 singers across the state begin the process. And there are 4 rounds of auditions, and you whittle away and you whittle away and you whittle away until after the 4th round, you get the Texas All-State Choir. So at the beginning of the process, there's roughly 15,000 singers, and we end with roughly 500, which, if you do the math, is about 3%.
Oh my gosh. How many rounds of auditions are there?
There are 4, and it starts in September and it ends in January. It is a marathon.
Oh my gosh. It sounds like Hunger Games, but on a massive scale. And also they're singing. But
They're singing.
Nailed the analogy, Matt. But yeah, that's so it's clearly like a massive accomplishment to have so many students, and not just so many students, but so many students out of the number of singers that you brought.
Yes.
Through.
One of the ways I think about was this a successful outing for the program is, if you can just look at the math of it, we take about the top 40% at the second round, right? So we lose the bottom 60 or so percent. So if the number of students that you take and advance is greater than 40%, you've done well. And so we had 43 advance to the second round, and we had 22 advance past the second round. And so we're sitting at about 50%. So we did pretty well.
Remarkable.
Yeah. So knowing that you have like these rounds ahead of you, what is next in terms of preparation? Like, how do the singers get prepared? How did you prepare your singers for the process?
That's a great question. And I don't think that I do anything different or special than anybody else, but I do think about it kind of logically. And I think about it in terms of how much time do these students have to give to the process, and how can we make the most out of that time? I mean, these students, the ones who end up making All-State, are always brilliant. They're always extremely talented, and they're multifaceted. They don't always have a singular focus. And so how we can maximize the time that they have is really important. And the way I think about it is they have to learn 3 or 4 pieces of music. And if we can cut it up into 30-second or 1-minute chunks, and then give that to them to rehearse, it makes much better sense. In my experience, most students don't really know how to practice. And that's true of myself. I didn't know how to practice until I was a junior in college.
That's a really good point. I mean,
and
most of us don't. Yeah.
Right. And left to their own devices, most students will start at the beginning of their practice track, and they will go through to the end. And then they'll go back to the beginning, and they'll go to the end, and then they'll go back to the beginning, and they'll go to the end. And then 15 minutes later has gone by, and they've had 3 repetitions.
Wow. Yeah. So you're kind of in like it's almost like you're structuring their rehearsal time or their practice time as you would a rehearsal, which is like to chunk it up, make it into more.
Absolutely. But I'm teaching them the skills to do it themselves. I start the very first sectional that we have, and we have after school sectionals 4 days a week. I start right at the very beginning. We don't do run throughs.
Hmm.
You will sing for 30 seconds to a minute at a time, and you'll go back again. Because in 5 minutes, you can get 5 repetitions of a 1-minute chunk. It also happens that in the audition, they sing maybe 1 minute of each song. They don't sing the whole song. They only sing a cut. And so not only are they making more effective use of their practice time, but they're practicing for their audition.
Can you actually go into exactly what each audition is composed of? Like, what do the singers do? Do they have sight reading in addition to?
Sure, yeah. So the first 2 rounds are basically identical, where they are given a set of music. And let me go back. In May, a set of music is released by the state, and it's chosen by the all-state choir clinicians, the all-state mixed choir, treble choir, and tenor bass choirs. That music is selected by them. And then we get it as a big list. And then we're told that at the final round, these songs will be auditioned. And then it's up to the regions to choose what's auditioned at the other rounds, at the first, second, and third rounds. And so we meet over the summer, usually at the TCDA convention, and we talk it through. And then we meet in August and we decide these songs will be auditioned at the first round, these songs will be auditioned the second round and the third round. And then each individual student is responsible for learning the entirety of those songs for that audition.
Wow.
And then when they show up to the audition on the day of, they're given cuts. So the music will start at measure blank. They will start singing at measure blank. The cut will end at measure blank. And every student sings those cuts for the judges.
That is such a, wow, that's like a rather meticulous process, but I guess you have to be when it's 15,000 singers competing for such a.
Well, it's 15,000 statewide. Depends on the region. Some regions are bigger than others. We're a fairly large region. We had 600 to 800. I can't remember off the top of my head at the first round.
Oh, so is it different, but depending on the region, like the audition process, or is it uniform across the state? Like,
my understanding is that there are 4 rounds all the way through. That across the state, there's always 4 rounds of auditions.
Mhm.
But who advances, or the number that advance to each round, varies depending on the needs of the region. Because after the second round of auditions, every region has a region choir concert. And so we have to put together a region choir out of 2 rounds of auditions.
Wow. So this all-state audition choir process serves multiple functions, like to make these regional choirs and to make the all-state choir. That wow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tricky. It at the end of the day, it comes down to a judge's individual taste. If the judges like your voice, you're more likely to advance. If the judges don't like your voice, you're not, even if you are perfectly accurate, particularly at the later rounds. I try to tell kids that it's possible for you to have a fantastic voice and for you to be wonderfully prepared, but for the judges to just not necessarily like you and for you to not advance, or you do something that the judges doesn't agree with and for you to not advance. And that it isn't the end all be all, but it is useful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is okay. So as a North Carolinian and a Californian, it is quite insightful to hear you talk about how this process kind of works. I mean, I'm just kind of blown away. I mean, both by the competition, the preparation, the slicing up, but at the end of the day, your singers are clearly successful because of your their teachers, because of having you as an educator. So that kind of leads us to our next question. You're not only an educator, but you're also a singer as well. So
yes.
Yeah, as someone who's sat next to you in Houston Symphony Chorus and gotten to sing with you, I remember being blown away, like personally, by your voice, and a little intimidated.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's very kind.
It's clear that you have a powerful instrument and like a mastery over it as well. Has that kind of factored into the way that you teach your students? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. at this point in my life, I don't mind saying that I'm a fairly accomplished singer. Enough people have told me that I know how to sing that I'm starting to believe them. We're all our worst critics in that way, but yeah, my ability
Imposter
to
syndrome, musician
yes.
syndrome. So yeah.
Well, from my perspective, I mean, some of the people that I went to college with have moved on to have great performing careers, and they've won Grammys at this point. You know what I mean? And so, like, I'm always comparing myself to them. Like, what am I doing? But at this point, I do feel comfortable saying that I'm a fairly accomplished singer. And my ability to do it personally and show them this is what it sounds like when you're doing it right, I think is enormously useful.
Yeah.
I know what certain aspects of singing feel like, and I can model lots of different sounds that come out of changing a particular technique. I kind of, if I'm being honest, I over rely on vocal modeling. I really do. I need to find other ways of teaching, but it is helpful that I can sing.
Well, if you have the voice that you have,
You were blessed with that voice. Use it in every way that you can. Absolutely.
yeah. If I was your student, I'd be like, please
I
sing.
just want to hear.
Sing. So later on, we're going to hear your choir on the podcast. And one of the things that I think our listeners are definitely going to notice is how gorgeous your choir sounds, especially like the maturity of their sound. And I personally was kind of blown away by the sound of your tenors and basses. They sound so mature. Do they?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Do they take voice lessons, or is it just purely through your efforts as an educator?
Yes, we do have a private lesson program at Pearland. Right now, we have just the one voice teacher. Her name is Dr. Cassandra Black. She's a U of H alum. Go Cougs. She teaches 3 days a week, almost all day.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Definitely, like,
Yeah.
having your modeling and then also that private voice instruction.
It's I tell kids that private voice lessons are the quickest way to mature as a singer. You know, we teach voice in choir, but it's in a very generalized group way. Private voice lessons are like the way to focus in on what you are doing and how to make you a better singer.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a unique voice, everybody has unique issues and problems and challenges and strengths. And having a private voice lesson teacher really, really helps.
Yeah. I love, like, hearing you talk about it. You can even tell that you're saying it as if you were saying it to your kid, like the most perfect educator's way of communicating. How important it is and how you should appreciate what you get.
Yeah.
No, totally. So beautifully spoken. So.
And then speaking of the awakening, if you could just share the significance of the performance piece.
Sure. I thought it was important to perform the awakening at the end of last year because of the year that we've all had. We performed the awakening for our UIL contest at the end of last year. And at the end of last year, we were still 6 feet apart. I still had about 30% of my singers at home taking online choir. I had fully masked, and we didn't go to a UIL contest site. We brought the judges to us. And what we realized is that there isn't enough space almost anywhere on campus for a choir, even at a reduced number, for us to be 6 feet apart, except in the seats of the auditorium. And so my students are standing 6 feet apart, every third row, every other row, something like that, with masks on, singing toward the stage where the judges are.
Wow. And this is that recording.
And this is that recording.
That is, you would never know. You would never know.
And the acoustics in our auditorium are pretty dry. And we're performing it with a keyboard, and we're just making the best of it that we can. But I thought that the words of Joseph Martin's The Awakening was so important, particularly in April of 2021, when things were really starting to look a little bit more positive, and when you could see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're not out of COVID yet, obviously, but we could start to feel that optimism that it was coming back.
Yeah.
And the words of that piece are, I dreamed a dream, a silent dream of a land not far away, where no birds sang, no steeples rang, and teardrops fell like rain. I dreamed a dream, a silent dream of a land so filled with pride that every song, both weak and strong, withered and died. No alleluia, not one hosanna, no song of love, no lullaby, and no choir sang to change the world. No pipers played, no dancers twirled. I dreamed a dream, a silent dream. And then the entire piece shifts to awake, awake, soli Deo gloria. Awake my soul and sing, the time for praise has come. The silence of the night has passed, a new day has begun. Let music never die in me, forever let my spirit sing. Wherever emptiness is found, let there be joy and glorious sound. Let music never die in me, forever let my spirit sing. Let all our voices join as one to praise the giver of the song. Awake, awake, let music live.
Wow.
I'm getting choked up just reading it.
Yeah. When was that piece written? Was it 2001?
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah, I remember hearing it for the first time myself when I was in high school, like around 2004.
Mhm.
I can only imagine, like, if only the composer knew, if only like
Right.
right, yeah, of what would end up happening, because it sounds so appropriate for this moment.
It was absolutely right for the moment. And it's an enormously powerful piece just on its own, but given the context of everything we've gone through, I still haven't sung in a big choir. Like, I've sung some church gigs, but I haven't sung with the symphony chorus for 2 years now.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm coming back for the Mahler 2 and the Beethoven 9. But I haven't sung myself in a big choir for a couple of years, and it was looking pretty dark and bleak. I haven't taken a break from singing that long in a really long time. I don't think I've ever taken a break from singing that long since I was in choirs when I was 10 years old. And to feel the optimism of that piece, that it's time to come back and time to sing, it was absolutely the right piece for the moment.
Yeah. I think we were all kind of in that. I mean, well, so many of us have just been singing nonstop for however many years, and then
Right.
that sudden pause, that's so
Standstill.
Yeah.
It's unnatural
Mhm.
for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
Talk about brilliant programming. So
Well, but the piece before that, we did the Daniel Gothrop Sing Me to Heaven in commemoration of all the victims of COVID.
Oh gosh. Wow, that is heavy.
Right.
And your singers are never going to forget that. They're going to carry that program with them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's picking music that is meaningful to the students is really important.
absolutely.
Picking repertoire that you can make a connection with and tell a story with always makes learning easier and better, and makes it so much better expressively. It's so much easier to be emotive, and it provides some motivation, and that personal connection with your audience is just enhanced by the right repertoire.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Wow. Spoken like a performer. So our director, Bob Simpson, knows you personally. And he had a couple words that he just wanted to mention. And,
Okay.
like, if they ring a bell. And the words are High Holy Days Choir and the name Beth Yeshirin. Do those ring a bell?
Yes, they do. I sang with Bob in the Beth Yeshurin High Holy Day Choir for, I think, 5 or 6 years. The Jewish High Holy Days they're the most important holidays in the Jewish calendar. And Bob was the director of the High Holy Day Choir at Beth Yeshurin. And I was brought in as one of the bass singers every year for about five or 6 years, I think. And he and I worked together for, 8 weeks at a time or so in the lead up to the services.
Wow.
Yeah.
He has nothing but fabulous things to say about you, Michael.
Oh, that's good. I have nothing but fabulous things to say about him. He is a wonderful, wonderful man.
Well, on behalf of all students and parents everywhere, and also appreciators of music, thank you for everything that you do for your students. It's just so incredible that you've poured so much time into your students' experience, that they're able to sing with the regional choir. I have like a really great shot, and also at the all-state choir level too. And you're providing them these opportunities. You're giving them voice lessons. You're teaching them how to practice, and you're giving them meaningful music to sing that speaks to the moment. That's so precious. You're the reason. You're everything that's going right in this country in terms of choral music.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. We get kind of deep in the weeds sometimes, and it's nice to have an opportunity to pull back and appreciate all the things that we're doing.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for speaking with us today. This was a really fun, great time. Learned a lot. But great to finally be able to speak with you. And I just wish you the most success for your choir program.
Well, thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael.
Absolutely.
Special thanks to our seasoned underwriter, Silvercrest Asset Management Group, our donors and partners for their consistent support, to our phenomenal guest, Mr. Michael Kessler, and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. And now, please enjoy The Awakening, composed by Joseph Martin and performed by the Pearland High School Varsity Mixed Choir.
Chamber Choirs with One Accord is your one-stop shop for choral joy. If you enjoyed this podcast, help us to continue our mission to grow the esteem and appreciation of choral music by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to our content. As a 501c3 nonprofit, support from listeners like you allows us to continue making new and exciting programming. For more information about us and how you can support our work, please visit houstonchamberchoir.org/give.